What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of The Remote Real Estate Investor. My name is Michael Album, and if you're watching this on camera, I've clearly got a shiny head tonight. I think it's my lighting. On this episode, I interview Dan Sheeks, author, investor, teacher, and just someone who's full of wisdom and golden nuggets. So let's get right into it. Dan Sheeks, what's going on, man? Thanks so much for coming on the show with me. I appreciate you.
You bet, Michael. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. So we were chatting a little bit before we recorded, we hit the record button. And so I know a little bit about your story, but I would love if you could share with all of our listeners who you are, where you came from, and what it is that you're doing now with real estate.
Sure. It's not a crazy, exceptional story. So I'll keep it short. I've been in Colorado for a little over 20 years. My main gig currently is that I am a high school business teacher in a public high school just south of Denver in a suburb. This is my 19th year doing that. And I teach classes like entrepreneurship, personal finance, marketing, stuff like that. I love my job. I absolutely love my job. I have great kids and great program. All my classes are electives. And so most of the kids that are in there want to be in there. And so it's fun to teach them. I bought my first property 18 years ago, but I really started investing, I would say, about 6 or 7 years ago when my wife and I, at the time we weren't married. We had just started dating actually, but we both were just kind of starting to scratch the surface around real estate investing. And when we met, we also both found the BiggerPockets community and the Choose FI community. And really dove like full on into those communities and their blogs and their podcasts and all that good stuff. And so, luckily for us, I guess that's probably why we're married. We were really in sync with our future financial goals and the idea of real estate investing to build wealth. So we've been hammering it ever since. Today we own 17 units, mostly in Colorado. We have 3 houses out in Detroit, Michigan, or a suburb of Detroit. Okay. And a little bit of variety in there. We have single family, small multifamily. We've done some BRRRRs. We have a couple of short-term rentals. We house hack, so we rent out our basement as well.
Love it.
They have mostly long-term buy and hold properties. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Man, that's awesome. I mean, I think there's a ton there that I want to unpack, but you said it, at the beginning of that sentence that it's not a very exceptional story. And I'm going to push back a little bit on that because you said that you're a high school business teacher in a public school. I mean, those words didn't exist in a sentence when I was in school. So what is a high school business teacher? I mean, that sounds incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot of people say that like, oh, I didn't know they had those classes in high school.
Yeah.
And when I was in school too, we did have one business teacher. He taught typing and accounting, and that might have been it. Okay. And I took accounting from him, and I really liked it. But business classes have been around, but nowadays they're really started. There's a lot of them, especially in the larger urban schools where there's enough of a class size and students to fill those rooms with kids. So we have all kinds of classes at our school. We have, I think, 7 business teachers, 6 full-time business teachers that teach a variety of classes. So Amazing. Most of your bigger urban schools are going to have business classes, and even some of your rural schools will have the things I mentioned, like, accounting and maybe an intro to business class, computer applications, stuff like that. So yeah, they're out there, but they are usually always electives.
Okay. All right. Well, I know I would have for sure jumped on that when I was in school. So I'm so glad to hear now that it's being offered. But it's so cool to hear that. I mean, you're living and breathing what it is that you're teaching these kids, right?
I teach personal finance and I teach marketing. Marketing's the main thing I teach. Marketing classes, social media for business, and I guess entrepreneurship too. And so in those classes, because it's a passion of mine, I will drop in, a day here, a day there. I call them FI days, financial independence days, and we'll just talk about some random strategy. Maybe it's house hacking, maybe it's frugality, maybe it's side hustles, maybe it's passive income, and we'll just have some good conversations around it. in the personal finance class, of course, I can get more into that because it's more relevant to the actual curriculum. But even in that class, I still have to cover a lot of the basics. So there's that foundation. Because when I get into things like, let's say, real estate investing or these higher level FI strategies, they have to have that foundation first.
Okay. And when you say the basics, what is that? Because I think so many investors or people that are just getting into investing in general hear that real estate's a great investment and think, okay, I got to go get some real estate, but maybe don't have some of those basics, some of those fundamentals down. So when you say that, what are you referring to?
Yeah, just the basic personal finance stuff would be things like checking accounts, savings accounts, brokerage accounts, the basic stock market investing knowledge, credit cards, building a good credit score, using credit, having assets and not liabilities, things of that nature. Insurance, pay stubs, doing your taxes.
Love it. And you recently wrote a book, right?
Yeah, I wrote a book, came out about 2 months ago.
Awesome. And what is it called and what can people expect to find in it?
Yeah, so the book is called First to $1 Million, and the subtitle is A Teenager's Guide to Achieving Early Financial Independence. And so it covers a lot. It's actually it's kind of a longer book for a teenager, but it's a pretty easy read, I think. But it's not something that someone would read in an evening. It's got some girth to it, I would say, a lot of good content. But when I wrote it for teenagers, obviously that's in the subtitle, but really it's a book, anybody who's just getting started in the early financial independence world or, that idea that, hey, I don't have to work till I'm 65. The book has a lot of value for anybody. I don't care what age you are. It's really an introduction to that community, that strategy. And so, I wrote the book assuming the reader knew nothing, right? They were starting with a clean slate. They knew very little about personal finance. The good news is, though, and I always laugh about this because there's a lot of people out there who are very passionate about teaching adults personal finance and early financial independence strategies, and bless them for doing that. But I think it's actually easier what I'm doing because the teenager is a blank slate, right? They haven't started bad habits. They haven't tanked their credit score. They haven't incurred a bunch of debt. They don't have any debt. And they haven't engaged in lifestyle inflation. So you can train them from the get-go to make good decisions from a very early age. And so I think it's kind of easier to deal with teens and to teach them right out of the gate. So that book is really just about introducing the young person to savvy personal finance, the foundation. Some of that's covered in the book. And then going into those bigger topics, like I mentioned before, frugality, entrepreneurship, side hustles, passive income, real estate investing, index fund investing. And there's a couple chapters in there about, should you go to college? Is that a good decision or not? Obviously, teenagers, that's a big decision they have to make.
That's a very big decision. I'm sure you've got some angry parents of folks reading that book because that's a question for so many people, right? It's like, you have to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any angry parents because I don't tell anybody what to do. I just lay out the pros and cons. Like if you, the reader, are interested in early financial independence, then here's the pros and cons of college. And I ultimately say it's your choice. Only you know what you should do. Mm-hmm. But a college degree isn't necessary for financial independence, and it sometimes can actually be a hindrance because especially if you incur debt. In the book I talk about, if you're going to go to college, great, more power to you, but you need to find a way to do it without incurring any student loan debt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you think about and just look at the math, like an average college costs about 20 grand a year, 25 grand a year. If you go put that on a down payment on a house, you could have 4 properties by the time you would have graduated college.
Yeah. Especially if you house hacked one a year, you would have 4 properties without a doubt. And I know guys who are financially independent with 4 properties and they house hacked them each. So you can parallel universe there. You have someone who's graduating at 22, let's say, with $100,000, $50,000 in credit card debt, just starting their career. And parallel universe, there's their twin who's basically at financial independence or very close. Now they're they're living pretty meagerly and frugally, but they can, slowly continue to buy more passive income assets and grow that over time. Yeah. So there's a choice, and I don't tell anyone what choice to make. Everyone's got their personal path to walk. But I do believe everyone should be educated on the options. Totally.
And I mean, you're teaching this stuff day in and day out, Dan. So what inspired you to actually write a book about it?
It started 6 or 7 years ago when my wife and I found BiggerPockets and ChooseFI. Because before that, I knew about investing and I knew about savvy personal finance, but I didn't know about early financial independence. And so as my wife and I learned more and more and more, and I was reading books and blogs and listening to podcasts and all that stuff, I was like, wow, these options that are included under the early financial independence umbrella, nobody knows about this stuff. It's a pretty new movement, at least the last 10 or 15 years. So teenagers being my thing, I love working with young people. I just knew that I had to write a book specifically for that young person about these early FI strategies, because there's nothing else out there. There's no other book out there for young people to introduce them to these other options.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that. I love that. So many people, I think, especially after talking to a financial advisor, a financial planner, get overwhelmed with all of the different options, all the different choices, all the different possibilities out there. So how do you break it down for younger folks to really understand and digest? And do you think that they really do?
I know they do, because I've worked with so many young people who are using these strategies and these tools and these tactics to be well on their way to early financial independence at a young age. Does every kid soak it up? I don't know yet, right? Because a lot of the students in my class or in my classroom or in my online community, they're probably listening to stuff and they may not employ it right away, but it's always going to be in the back of their head. So maybe 15 years down the road, they hate their job. And then that's the impetus that makes them say, you know what? I cannot do this for another 30 years. But I remember that one guy or that one book that one blog.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so let me Google that and see what that's about again. I want to look into that some more, because now they're more motivated perhaps. Yeah.
I love that. So, and let's talk about your online community. What's it called and kind of who's it for?
It's called Sheeks Freaks, which is kind of a funny name.
I love the name.
Oh, well. It's my last name plus the word freaks. And the whole, the first 2 million book, the whole kind of premise or the theme of the book is around being freakish. And same with my community. And that is, it's the idea that very few young people are motivated enough to spend time learning and executing personal finance strategies. It's not the norm. Most young people don't want anything to do with that. That was me when I was younger. So the young person, like if someone reads my book and they're a teenager, that's exceptional, right? That's a book about personal finance and money that a teenager just read through. Kudos to them, but that's not normal. It's freakish in a good way, right? It's exceptional. So the Sheeks Freaks community is an online community. It's been around for about 2 years. It's for young people. I like to say 15 to 25 who are either beginning or, maybe intermediate level around early financial independence stuff. We have several different subgroups within the community, like different topics that they can join that they're more specifically interested in. We have like 40 of those. And so it's just a place for young people to come together to interact and connect with like-minded young people, because again, they're freaks, they're different. And so even in their home group, there's not a lot of people like them. Their best friends probably aren't engaging in the conversations that they want to have around money. But in my community, that's all that we're doing.
I love it. And how do you find the conversation is best started? For a lot of our listeners out there, maybe they're parents and have young kids or teenage age kids in their life. And this topic has never come up at the dinner table or never come up in life. So how do you start to facilitate? How do you start to have that conversation? You give them a book and say, here, go get learned.
Yeah. Well, I think you have the conversation at the dinner table. Even you just do it, right? And I mean, it should go well before that. I think money conversation should be had in the household from a pretty early age, I mean, from the get-go. And it becomes part of your family culture that we are open with money. We talk about our incomes and our expenses and our financial status in our house. And I mean, you can try to make it, don't tell them too much until they're old enough to understand that some of that shouldn't be shared with everybody. But you have the conversations at dinner. You have the conversations in the car on the way to the grocery store. You have your child, teenager, tween, whatever. You have them sit down with you while you pay the bills. Click the mouse and pay the bill here, pay the bill there. You show them where your money's coming in. You show them where the money's going out for the household. Every household is like a small little business. So show them the profit and loss. Show them the balance sheet. Show them the checking account, the savings account, the brokerage account. Explain to them what's going on there. If they don't have any interest, just keep at it every few months, sit them down again. But if you're having these conversations around the table, I think it's going to happen pretty organically. I don't have kids that age yet, so I can't speak to it. But I can say as a teacher, and use terms like financial freedom, not retirement. Retirement's kind of boring and like light years in their future, but financial freedom, financial independence, those are more catchy, clickbaity kind of terms that they might gravitate to. And, just pose a question like, son or daughter, if you won $100,000 in the lottery, what would you do with that money? Here's what I would do. Let them explain it. And here's what I would do. And what do you think would be the best use of that money? Would you split it into different buckets? And why would you do that? There's a lot of things you can do to just facilitate money conversations. That's really what you got to do.
Yeah. That's a great question. So Dan, I would love to shift gears here and talk a little bit about your kind of personal portfolio and journey, having done, a handful of different things. What's been your favorite investment asset class to date?
Short-term rentals, we have two, and we're not experts by any stretch, but they do crush it, man. The increased cash flow is significant, but they are a little more high maintenance, or sometimes a lot more high maintenance. My wife one of our short-term rentals is about an hour drive south of here in Colorado Springs. And my wife just went down today it's an hour drive down. She spent about 2 hours down there. She came back for an hour. She goes down there and checks up on the property every month or so, just to make sure things are good. Touch base with our cleaner, who's really kind of our property manager down there in a way.
Okay.
So I think those are my favorite, but we're not real estate investors that want to own 100 properties. We'll probably buy a few more and then we'll be good. We'll probably start paying off some mortgages and increasing our cash flow. And we don't want to own multiple short-term rentals. That's just not in our strategy for long-term wealth and happiness. And that's what it's all about, right? It's about being happy. And we live pretty frugally, so we don't need a bunch, and we don't want to be having to think about a bunch of properties.
Makes total sense. And you mentioned that you and your wife are also house hacking, which I love because my wife and I are doing the same thing. And I think so many people hear what house hacking is and think, oh, it's only for, a single person fresh out of school, can eat top ramen for dinner. But I mean, you're a married couple doing it. So curious to know what that's been like for you both.
It's been awesome. It's like getting a $10,000 a year raise every year, or just a bonus, I guess. And by the way, my wife was a public school teacher, elementary, for 18 years before she retired a couple years ago. Was able to retire because
Amazing.
of our real estate investments. And now she manages our portfolio. She grows our portfolio. She's a property manager, and she has a couple side hustles. So she's home pretty much all day, except when she's doing, managing properties and whatnot. So we have a 3-story house, and it's a 3-bedroom house, and there's a bedroom on each floor, each level. So in our basement, there's 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a living area, plenty of storage, fireplace, and we've kind of made a makeshift kitchen down there, with a hot plate and a microwave and a toaster oven and a medium-sized fridge. And so, we rent out the basement to, we just, our third tenant that we've had in like 4 or 5 years just left. So it's right now actually listed, and we'll have someone moving in soon. They just live downstairs. We share the laundry with them. We share the main entrance. For the most part, they don't use our kitchen, but they can, if they need to use it, that's fine. But they pay us $950 a month to live in our basement. It's a nice house, right? The downstairs is a great living area.
Amazing.
And so it's not for everyone. My wife and I are in our 40s. We have a small child. I'm at work, at school, every day. So we only rent to females. My wife feels and I feel much more comfortable doing just females. And it's worked out great. We've had 3 great tenants, looking for a 4th. And who doesn't want an extra 10 grand a year?
Totally. And so it sounds like it's a long-term rental then, long-term basis.
Yeah, we usually start out with 3 to 6 months and then month to month after that. I think all 3 of our tenants have stayed for at least 1 year. The longest, I think, was 2 years. Okay.
Man, I love that. Any plans to stop that in the future when your kids get to a certain age, after you feel like, you know what, I'm just kind of over this? Do you see that in your horizon anytime?
We've talked about it, but we'll just play it by ear, honestly. I mean, if at some point we're like, this isn't working anymore, we'll just say, all right, you got another month. Here's your month's notice, and then we'll move on. Yeah,
love it. And I think house hacking is like one of the best way to turbocharge. It's like rocket fuel for real estate investing and wealth building. I mean, it's just unbelievable what you can do with it. So, any tips, tricks, recommendations to folks listening out there that are considering purchasing a house hack for themselves?
Oh, I have tons. And I agree with you.
Awesome. I thought you might.
Yeah, Michael, I 100% agree with you that house hacking is, I think, by far the best real estate investing strategy for young people to get started. And I write about it quite a bit in my book. There's also a workbook there's the book, First 2 Million, and there's a workbook that goes with it. And in that workbook, it takes a teenager over like a 5-year period of time and gives them tasks to do every 4 months. And if they follow the workbook, they will own their first house hack within about 4 years when they start employing all of my strategies that I lay out. And so, some tips and tricks. One, if you're a teenager, you got to start saving some money. You can have a low down payment with the house hack because it is a primary residence, but you got to have some cash, and you want to have some emergency cash, and you want to have some initial maintenance and repairs cash, which I lay all this out in the workbook in detail. You got to have a good credit score. I tell the young people I work with, and this is counterintuitive to I think what a lot of people say, but the day you turn 18, I say, roll out of bed, go to your laptop and apply for your first credit card. And when you turn 19, get your second one, and you turn 19 and a half, get your third one, and use all 3 at least a little bit every month and pay them off every month. If you do that, you will have an amazing credit score in no time. And I know young people who have done exactly that. Caveat, right? That's only if you know how to use a credit card responsibly. If you haven't been educated on that, then stay the heck away. But the young people in my community, they're very responsible with money, and they are educated on how to do that. So get the good credit score, save up some money, educate yourself. That's a huge piece. Read the books. I'll throw a plug in for my friend Craig Kurlap. He wrote a book called The House Hacking Strategy, published by BiggerPockets. Same publisher as my book. And it is a phenomenal book for someone who wants to start house hacking and just wants that introductory book that takes them from step 1 to step 100. And now you're in your third house hack kind of thing. Yeah. So the piece of that puzzle for house hacking that will trip most young people up is the income history. A lender isn't going to want to lend a 20-year-old or a 21-year-old or a 22-year-old $100,000 for a property unless they know they're going to be able to pay it back. And most young people don't have.
I can't show my lunch money that I got from my parents' income when I was in high school. That won't count.
Allowance doesn't count. Gifts from grandma don't count. All that stuff. So,
all right. Yeah. So what do most folks do?
Well, young people in the workbook, I kind of lay out a plan of how you can, for the young person that doesn't go to college, it becomes much easier. You work full time for a couple years, hopefully in a good job. And depending on the value of the property you're looking to buy, that could be all you need to do. For some people, it could be as easy as graduating from college and just getting that first job that is aligned with your major, and you don't even have to work for very long after obtaining that job. They just want to see that you have a pay stub from the job that you were in school for, and then you're good to go. But the best loophole, which doesn't work for every young person, is to have a parent co-sign on the mortgage. So the bank looks at their income history and credit score if needed, and the young person can get in to that first property.
Oh, I love it. So it's interesting you mentioned the getting a job associated with your major. My younger brother, actually, shout out to you, Jeff, went and did this. He graduated, got a good paying job at the company I used to work for. And then they told him, yeah, you qualify for a mortgage because we'll constitute your 4-year degree as basically earned time that you're earning income.
Yep.
So he's like, sweet, awesome. Yeah. So it's a pretty good life hack.
It is for sure.
No, I love it. Dan, this has been so much fun, man. I want to be very respectful of your time. Where can people get your book? Where can they subscribe to your online community? And if people have additional questions, want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Sure. And thanks for having me, Michael. This has been a blast. I could talk about this stuff for hours. If they're interested in the book, First to a Million, you can get it at BiggerPockets.com, which is the publisher. And if your listeners are familiar with real estate, they've probably been to that website a few times already, if not every day. They can also find it. They can also find it on Amazon and other places. The workbook right now is exclusively at BiggerPockets.com. However, until I think spring of 2022. The community for young people, there's a free version and a paid version. I'll just transparency there, but the free version has a ton of value. Just go to sheeksfreaks.com and there's a button that says join the community and it'll tell you all about it. And if people want to reach out to me, I prefer email, dan@sheeksfreaks.com, but you can also reach out to me, DM me on Instagram. That works too.
Awesome. Dan, this was great. So much valuable in what you've been talking about in the book and the online community. Can't wait to see where you go from here. We'll definitely be in touch soon, man. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Thanks again.
Hey, my pleasure. Take care. All right, everyone, that was our episode. A big thank you to Dan for coming on, and just a big shout out to Dan for educating our young people and teachers in general for all the work that you all have done. If you like the episode, please feel free to leave us a rating or a review wherever it is you listen to your episodes. And as always, we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Happy investing.